Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated Legacy action. At the request of a donor today, we are playing a bit of a spicy one. This is a deck that comes from Glen over in Canada, and they've been trying to puzzle their way through what Eldrazi looks like in Legacy now there's no Sown Microspawn. A few people have been trying to make, red Eldrazi decks, but none of them that I've seen have gone as deep into red as this, and I quite like what we're seeing here. So we're taking some of the core Mono-Red Stompy shells. We've got our Chalice of Voids, we've got our Soul Lands, but instead of running City of Traitors, we're running Eldrazi Temple, which allows us to power out things like our Fleshrakers, our Devourer of Destiny at the top of our curve, but then also Linebreaker. I think Linebreaker encourages people not to run Eye of Ugin, because you don't get to discount your Linebreaker that much, right? Because you only discount the one, and you don't have anything to tap for the colourless. Whereas Eldrazi Temple plus any red source is Eldrazi Linebreaker. So I quite like that one there. We have the One Ring to refuel, just like the classic Mono-Red Stompy decks are, and we do have Broadside Bombardiers, which is one of the most powerful board control tools these Stompy decks have access to. And, if we're cheating on mana to play stuff that's quite large, that gives us lots of fuel for our Broadside Bombardiers. So, we can play an undercosted Reality Smasher and throw it. So Reality Smasher is kind of like our version of Pyrogoyf in this deck. It's our big splashy thing that's going to come out, immediately do damage when we play it, pretty much, because it's got Trample and Haste. But we also have things like the Fleshraker Kozilek's command combo in here. So we've got some different lines of attack that can be really powerful, as well as just, smashing our opponent's face with some big guys early doors. Eldrazi Obligator is quite an interesting one here. So this is whenever you cast a spell, you may pay 1 on a colourless. If you do, gain control of target creature until end of turn, untap it, and it gains haste. And this has haste on its own. So you can steal a Barragoyf, attack your opponent with it. And if you've got Broadside Bombardiers out, not only are you stealing the Barragoyf, attacking them with it, but you're also throwing it at them to remove it. That is pretty darn sweet. So I'm excited to see how this one pans out. Mana base wise, it was a little tricky to fine tune this one. Glen's list that he sent me was very, very close. I made slight adjustments. At first I wanted to go down on the double face lands, because normally in a Mono-Red Stompy list you would see fewer mana sources than we're running here. But the problem is, because we have all these colourless cards, we do need more red cards. So that meant I was trimming on Mountain to make sure we could have these. So we will be taking some damage from our lands, but hopefully that doesn't matter because we should be the aggro in almost every matchup. We also do get to run some Caverns here, which can give us a nice little way of punching through some of the decks that are relying on counter spells. Chalice is obviously a very useful tool, but when we're trying to play aggro, having a thing that is going to shut off one mana removal is really handy. So I do like Chalice here. Sideboard-wise, I put in some Leyline the Voids. The original list had Unlicensed Hearse, but I think you just need the turn 0 Graveyard Hate with Oobsal Spells being the most popular deck in Legacy right now. I put in a Singleton Kozilek to try and beat some of these painter decks. And this is also one that we can realistically cast. I don't think we're going to be casting Emrakul's, but a 10 mana guy, sure. And it's mainly just here for the shuffle effect. So it's kind of irrelevant what the body is, but maybe, just maybe, we can cast it. We've got a couple of Trinispheres to slow some stuff down. We've got some Disruptor Flutes as a generic piece of interaction against various decks. We've got 3 Blood Moons here. The original list had 4. I decided to cut it down because we are a little bit dependent on some of our Soul Lands here. Maybe we could go up to 4. Alright, I've convinced myself now. I'm going to shave one of these Red Blasts. Alright, so we've gone up to 4 full Blood Moon with nice mismatching borders to really annoy our opponents. We could also trim this Red Elemental Blast and just have another Disruptor Flute or Trinisphere. That's probably better than having just one Red Blast. Alright, so I've gone for the Disruptor Flute here. The reason being is Trinisphere is a 3-drop, and because we only have the Ancient Tombs that give us 2 colourless mana for non-Eldrazi spells, I don't think it's as good to have more Trinispheres because we're less likely to be able to cast them super early. So it's just something that we play another piece of Disruption like a Chalice or a Disruptor Flute, and then we play the Trinisphere the turn after. So I'm sort of eased back on the Trinisphere, but just gone more into the Disruptor Flute because it's more flexible in my opinion. Alright, little tinkering's over and done with. Please remember to like and subscribe. The analytics tells me that a lot of you lovely people out there watching aren't subscribed, so why not hit that subscribe button and get me towards that 5k subs. Alright, let's have a crack with Glen's Red Eldrazi. The lovely people over at 3for1 Trading are doing a spring sale from May 7th to May 12th. Get 5% off of all orders over $500 with free worldwide shipping by using the code SPRINGSALE25. Their support helps make this channel viable for me, so support them by clicking the link in the description of this video to browse their enormous inventory and find whatever you need for your Magic collection. Alright, our first opener is a touch slower than I would like. I think we can do better. Okay. We're seeing a little bit of the awkwardness that our deck can materialise. We do get to make a turn 1 Fleshraker, so I will keep this. What are we putting back? So if we put back the Smasher, we can go turn 1 Fleshraker, turn 2 Bombardier. We could put back the Simian Spirit Guide, put the Shatterskull underneath the Chrome Mox and go turn 1, Fleshraker, turn 2, Bombardiers, and then maybe we can play a Smasher. Our opponent is on the play. I think we're going to put back the Simian Spirit Guide here. So the reason for that is, if we draw any other red card, we can stick it under there, and we can keep this land. Alright, we just died on turn 1. Thoughtseize, so they can take the Chrome Mox and slow us down. Alright, we're looking to draw Chalice of the Void, I think. Or are we just dead this turn? We're not dead this turn. So play this to get around Chalice. Okay, so now we got rid of our Spirit Guide, and they took our Chrome Mox. We don't get to make this Chalice. So we can make a Chalice on 0, and that will shut down things like Let's Play. Well, they already played out this 0, so I don't think they have any more 0s that we actually care about. I think we're just going to fade it for a turn, and then try and play this on 1. I suspect we just die here, but this is why we have a sideboard. Oh, and Entomb. Alright, so we're doing some slightly different things here. Echo of Eons, alright. Maybe we should have played the Chalice on 0. I thought our opponent was playing Oops All Spells. What does our hand do here? We make a Fleshraker, that's okay, but it's not really going to compete with full-on combos swinging around in our face here. Elvish Spirit Guide, Thoughtseize, Entomb, Echo. I'll be honest, I don't 100% know the contents of our opponent's deck here. But I'm certainly glad we have Leylines rather than a Licensed Hearse. Guy as well. Okay, so we're some sort of, like, Beseech Saga deck, maybe? What is the most we can do here? We can play out the Fleshraker, play out the Chrome Mox, imprint a Smashing. We don't have enough to do anything else this turn, but next turn we can get a decent amount of stuff down. We can get this Reality Smasher down, which is also going to give us some little pumps with the Eldrazi's. Chrome Mox from our opponents. So the Chalice on 0 would have definitely been a useful thing to have deployed. But I had the wrong read on what our opponent's deck was. I went for the most common Bog at Bog Thoughtseize deck. But at least we're getting to play several turns of Magic the Gathering here. Goblin Charbelcher. Okay. I suspect this is going to kill us unless we draw like a Kozilek's Command right now. Okay. What does this do for us? I guess we just fire off the biggest Kozilek's Command we can. This will give us 5 tokens for a Reality Smasher as well. Do any of these matter? So our opponent's about to take 5 damage. That's going to put them to 8. This deals them 6, 7, 8. So if we just put like... it doesn't really matter what we put on top here, does it? We're just going to kill our opponent right now. Or we die next turn. So I guess we will just draw this Chrome Mox. It's a free ping. It's been a hot minute since I've won a game because of Reality Smasher. Now, some may argue we won this game because of Glaring Fleshraker. But we managed to demonstrate the power of having like the Kozilek's Command, Glaring Fleshraker there. We went from our opponent's about to kill us to let's hit you for 13 damage in a turn. Alright, pretty sweet proof of concept there. Leyline on the Void, get in. Disruptor Flutes, very happy that we have all of these that we can bring in, and I will bring in a couple of Trinispheres. This is not a Blood Moon matchup, they're not trying to mill us, so we don't need any of those things. What doesn't look great here? I doubt this is going to be an Eldrazi Obligator matchup, although our opponent might be pivoting to creatures, but I just don't think that's realistically happening. The One Ring might be a touch slow for what we're trying to accomplish here. We're just trying to beat face as much as possible. If we get rid of those, we can't get rid of any more creatures because we need to have our density of threats. So then we're looking at getting rid of this sort of stuff. Now, I think the Kozilek's Command is obviously very strong with Fleshraker and did help us out there. But it's also not credible some of the time because it is quite expensive. I think we're just looking at trimming stuff like this, and we just have like a lot of prison-y defensive stuff. We're not bringing in Blood Moons here. Our opponent's got loads of artifact mana. What does this hand do? This is a turn 1 nothing, turn 2 Fleshraker, maybe something. I think we can do better than this. I wouldn't mind starting with a Leyline just so we can shut off all of these annoying Echo of Eons lines. It's a turn 1 Bombardiers, which isn't actually that impressive. I think we can do better. Okay, this I will keep. So we're going to be jamming some Disruptor Flutes. So we're going to want the Ancient Tomb to cast the Disruptor Flutes. That's step 1. Do we want the Eldrazi Temple, or do we want... We've got to get rid of 2 things here. Eldrazi Linebreaker hits harder on its own, so I think it's actually better to keep... Do need another red source here. I think we're going to get rid of the Chrome Mox, and I think it's the Bombardiers here. Alright, Leyline of Anticipation. Are we going to die in our upkeep? Why do they board in the Leyline of Anticipation if they're on the draw? That's very strange to me. Lion's Eye Diamond. Are we dead on turn 1? No, we are not. Okay. and Entomb. Go ahead. So they're going to wheel our hand here. I'm going to exile the Simian Spirit Guide because we might be able to play a Disruptor Flute in a second. It did not work. Alright, we have kind of the same hand. I guess we just hold up this Disruptor Flute. If our opponent plays an LED, we can just play this in response. We can name Echo of Eons. Another Lion's Eye Diamond, sure. And a bauble over the top. I don't understand the timing that all this is happening. They could have done all of this in our upkeep instead of letting us get some mana to cast a spell. Alright, so it looks like the Echo of Eons is going to be happening. Another little wheel. Can I disrupt a flute, please? I think we named Goblin Charbelcher, but I think we might just die in response to this Disruptor Flute being on the stack. Okay, let's just shut that down. Our opponent almost certainly has a Storm kill with Tendrils of Agony. But if they were going to try and win... Alright, they've got Force of Vigor, pitching Force of Vigor. Alright, it didn't matter what we named it at all. Dark Ritual. They got a Beseech line here. No, we're just going for another spin. Cool, cool, cool. Well, they could have done all of this turn 1 and had one more card. I didn't really need the Leyline Anticipation here. It's just very odd to me that they're running it. There's a Charbelcher. Alright, let's see their deck when they point it at us. So I'm not entirely sure what's in our opponent's deck. Alright, let's have a peek. So there is one Tendrils, there are Beseech the Mirror. Yeah, so this is like the Beseech Belcher deck that we played last week or the week before. Slightly different, but it's more or less the same. Okay, let's have a little think. I honestly think we're fine with what we're doing here. Leyline of Anticipation, when you're on the play, is very weird to me. I'll keep this. It's not the quickest hand, but it has some really key prism pieces. So we're not going to get bopped by an Echo. Now, they could have a Force of Vigor to blow this up. That's a reasonable amount of resources gone, though. Right, Chrome Mox. I will imprint a Shatterskull Smashing. I will deploy this Chalice for 0. Shuts off LEDs and Lotus Petals from our opponent. Now, our opponent does have the ability to play some stuff in response, and they can also have access to the Force of Vigor they've shown us already. Putting in 2 underneath it makes sense. Alright, the whole hand is just 0 mana artifacts. Okay, so now we just need to draw an Eldrazi Temple or a Ancient Tomb. Alright, our opponent passed over pretty quickly there. I will deploy a Shatterskull Smashing tapped. Yeah, so our hand isn't exactly putting the hurt on our opponent. We do have a threat that can get out of hand relatively quickly. And we can still cast a Chrome Mox with our Glaring Fleshraker. Alright, there we go. Gotta believe in the deck. So we'll play this, we'll get countered by the Chalice, but we still make a guy. So we've got a clock going. And we've stopped a lot of what our opponent's doing. We have many draws that speed up our clock. Kozilek's Command, obviously very good. Reality Smasher and friends. Okay, what if we attacked with a 2/2 Ape Spirit? Do I want this Sundering Eruption? It is actually land destruction against our opponent, so we're going to keep it in hand. If they play a land, we get to blow it up, because they're not going to have any basics, because they're running Goblin Charbelcher, so all their lands are double face cards. Alright, let's get in for some damages. 4 is a respectable enough clock. Oh. Black mana. A Dark Ritual. Sure. A Boggart Trawler. Goodbye to my graveyard. Goodbye to my Glaring Fleshraker. As a 2-for-1, we still have a clock. They have reduced the amount of damage they're taking. If we can put a Chalice on 1, then I'm going to feel pretty happy about things. I'll play out the Temple. We'll attack. If they want to flash in another blocker, it's going to cost them 2 resources, because it'll be the creature and the mana. And we got some junk in hand, that's for sure. But the power of Spirit Ape compels me. Alright, I'll just keep playing some lands out. This means that when we get Kozilek's Command, it's going to be huge. Our opponent's basically just trying to draw a Force of Vigor, I think, at this stage. So I can nail the Chalice in the thing and just get out from underneath everything. Okay. Let's play a Disruptor Flute. I think we're going to name Force of Vigor to make it harder to do anything with. Alright, let's see what they're doing here. A Goblin Charbelcher. Okay, I guess we're going to name Goblin Charbelcher now. Alright, they're just cracking and we're just dead. Cool. Yeah, that sucks for us. So we could have just sat on the Disruptor Flute and waited till they played the Charbelcher and then played it in response. Are we supposed to do that? So I was going to name Force of Vigor because it felt like our opponent was just waiting for the Force of Vigor and then they're going to blow our stuff up and win the game. So Leyline of Anticipation actually mattered there. I don't think it mattered in game 2 though. Alright, an interesting one, but we are unfortunately 0-1. Let's go to round 2. Okay, this is turn 1 Chalice, turn 2 Linebreaker. That sort of hand seems pretty good to me. Here comes the Chalice. Is this a thing you care about, opponent? Apparently not. Good. We also have the Bombardiers Obligator combo, which I'm very excited to get working at some point. Now, there is an issue with where is our red mana coming from for the Bombardiers, because there's not a lot of overlap in our creature types when it comes to Bombardiers and all of our Eldrazi. Another Obligator. Alright, I'll play this. I will name Eldrazi. And we swing in. So if we don't find a red source, we can still just like obligate next turn and steal something. So this might be the Ocelot Pride Gearhold deck. Alright, that's a guy. You're going to make him big, are you? All the bigger for me to swing him at you with. A Chrome Mox. Interesting. Right, I think the play here is pretty straightforward though. So I should go with a trigger on the stack here. So we're attacking for what? 11 here? Cool. I don't believe our opponent's going to hit us for 14, but if they do, fair play to them. Eldrazi Obligator. Looking pretty good right now. We don't have to worry about any Path to Exiles or anything either, or Source of Plowshares even, because we got the Chalice up and running. You're going to play another creature. Another creature, sure. You attacking with your Scythe Cub? They are not. So this has Trample anyway. A Glaring Fleshraker. So if we play the Fleshraker, we end up with 1 mana left over, 2 mana left over, which then plays the Obligator. 2 mana left over, 3 mana left over, 4 mana left over. Right? So we have 1, 2, 3. We play Fleshraker with 1 floating. Then we play the Mox. That gives us a second floating, possibly a third if we want to put the Bombardiers going. So we should just steal their guy and kill them, shouldn't we? Because the Linebreaker has Trample as well. So this is red and 2. I'd very much like to have your 4/4 Trampler, please. We're going to be attacking our opponent with a lot of trample damage this turn. Alright, we very much did the thing there. So our opponent's playing like green-white, landfall-y type guys. What looks good here? Honestly, I think our deck is relatively well tuned for this. Not having anything like a Fury is a little bit awkward here. But I don't think we're taking anything out. We've got a lot of 1-drops, so we shut them down as good. Blood Moon can do some stuff, but I think it's actually going to end up hindering us more. This is just for when we have a matchup where this just solos the matchup. We're not bringing it in because it's good, we're bringing it in because it wins the matchup. Because it does have a problem for our own deck if we play this. So we have to be really careful when we're boarding in. I think we're just sending it again. So we can go... I guess we have the Devourer of Destiny, which can fix us up a little bit. I'm going to keep this one. So we'll do this on our first upkeep. Oh, they're not playing anything on turn 1. That's very good for us. Okay, what do I like here? It's going to be a toughie. We don't have any colourless mana right now, which I think means we're taking the Bombardiers, which is also just a really good board control tool against our opponent's deck. So I think we play this and pay 3 life. We play the Chrome Mox, and we can either imprint the Spirit Guide or the Bombardiers. I think it's the Spirit Guide, so we at least have some action that we can play off of any land we draw. Now, we are a little bit in trouble if we don't draw the land, but our deck has a lot of mana in it. So no Source of Plowshares, no Ocelot Pride, no Guide of Souls. But our opponent probably has Force of Vigor in some quantity in their deck, so they could just blow both of these up at some point, and then we'll be sad. A Wasteland. Oh, I'm so glad they didn't just activate that Wasteland. Whew. Glaring Fleshraker. Okay, so we are cooked here. Our opponent should win this one handily from this point, I think. Okay, so now they know we've missed a land drop. They're going to waste this. That's going to take us further back. Although we can draw a soul land and then all of a sudden jump up in mana. Oh, wow, they're tapping the Wasteland again. Is this another Scythecat Cub? Alright, they're just going for... Okay, they have another Wasteland. That makes sense. So we're going to get Bash for 4. We're going to lose our Volcanic Fissure. I'm probably just going to lose this game. I don't understand why you're doing this in the upkeep. That's a weird line to me. Okay, so we can do this. It doesn't help. Cool, let's pass. I think we're just going to lose this one. Our deck is nearly 50% mana, so it's a bit unfortunate for us not to draw any. But we did make a decision with our Simian Spirit Guide. rather than putting the Bombardiers under. But I guess if we'd have done that, we wouldn't have been able to cast our spells anyway, because the Eldrazi is not pitching to Chrome Mox is a real deal here. Okay, so they're making Sidecat Cub copies. Not a bad thing to be doing. So they can stack them all on this one Sidecat Cub and hit us for loads this turn. That looks like what they're doing. Right, so we're dead next turn. What can we draw that helps here? We could Fog with the One Ring for a turn if we draw a Soul Land. We can play a Broadside Bombardiers. It can't kill anything relevant. Let's just go to game number 3 on this one. Alright, we basically just took turns of just windmilling into each other. Let's just go again. I think our deck is alright for a matchup like this. Being able to shut off all their 1-drops is kind of huge. We more or less lost to ourselves because we didn't cast our spells. But that is an issue where not all of our things pitch to Chrome Mox, which is, again, something I've tried to address by only having the one mountain, but it is going to come up from time to time. Now, this is obviously an unkeepable hand. This is also an unkeepable hand. Okay. So, Linebreaker, Chrome Mox, imprint a thing, keep the One Ring, so if we draw any mana source, we're good to go. Any mana source gives us turn 2 One Ring. That seems fine to me. Alright, we have a 5-turn clock. But any mana source, we get the One Ring, and then we probably just overtake our opponent because the One Ring is pretty busted Magic the Gathering card. A Noble Hierarch, sure. So we could Obligator this, or I guess we just attack with this as a guy. This doesn't have Trample. It just has Haste. So the Linebreaker is going to pump itself, but we're still attacking for 8 here. So our opponent is dead next turn if they don't block or kill our creatures. Yeah, so basically, the one thing we don't want to draw really is the Reality Smash. Pretty much everything else in our deck we can cast. Alright, so they've taken a decent amount of our damage out, but the fact they use their Hierarch suggests to me that they don't have another land here. Okay, they do have a land. Are they going to cast a Cub? They are going to cast a Cub. Okay. A Simian Spirit Guide. Sure thing, boss. Actually, let's just attack. They're not going to trade here first. Give them less information about what we're doing. They might trade, I guess. Oh, they are trading. That's actually pretty good for us. Alright, let's get the One Ring in. A pretty busted Magic the Gathering card. Okay, so if our opponent makes a big guy, we can win the game by stealing it. The fact that we have so much hasty damage means our opponent's got a really difficult job of gauging what life they're going to be on in any given turn. A Static Prison. This is going to remove our copy of the One Ring, I suspect. Not firing off the Wasteland, though. Alright, put our opponent to 4. I would have fired off the Wasteland if I were them. If they're trying to restrict our resources. But I guess they're on kind of low resources because they're not making land drops themselves. Pima Trailblazer. I don't like this card in the deck. I understand why it's in there, but I just think this is the weakest slot in the deck that I would take out. An Eldrazi Temple, please. Right, they're taking out our Chrome Mox. Okay, Eldrazi Temple not looking so hot right now. Broadside Bombardiers. So we can attack with this, kill this, and then our opponent takes 1. Interesting. Okay, I think we just pass here. I could force 1 point of damage through. What does this even do? Deals combat damage, you get that many energy counters. If they're attacking with this, that's not great for them. If I can play Broadside Bombardiers, we just automatically win because we can launch this at our opponent for 5 damage. Pretty close. Obviously, we don't have much in the way of resources here. Our opponent can attack for 4, but that doesn't seem like... Oh, wow, they're just going for it here. They must have something else to play here. This means that their Static Prison doesn't go away. Ocelot Pride. Sure. Horizon Canopy. Our opponent is leaving themselves in a little bit of a precarious position here. Right, so we're going to take 3 damage here. I'll play this out because this gives us Bombardiers off of any red source. A crack in the Horizon Canopy. That is an interesting play. They only have 4 energy. So this isn't going to be doubling its size, or whatever it is. Put +2/+1/+1 counters. Yeah. So they're not going to be doing that this turn. They've got 1 card in hand. Do they have to hold back, or are they going for an attack here? They're going for an attack. I don't hate this attack. Like, it might look a bit awkward given their current life total. I guess they've got to have something here, right? That's the only thing that would make sense. Unless they're going to use this to draw a bunch of cards. They are. Okay. So they're going for the aggressive line, hoping they draw something that interacts with our guy. They are drawing 7 cards. That's pretty good. It's because I badmouthed this card. It's actually getting to look good one time. Swords to Plowshares. Okay, so Broadside Bombardiers still kills through what our opponent has here. Chalice of the Void. So this is how much? 5 damage? 6 damage. Okay, I don't think we're playing out the Chalice here. We can play out the Chalice the same turn we do the Broadside Bombardiers. We can just play it for 0 and fling it at our opponent. It's getting tight though. Voice of Victory. Okay, so things are looking a little tough now. 3 life and 2 life are very, very different numbers given our current situation. Alright, come on deck. Broadside Bombardiers. Unfortunately, we don't quite get over the finish line. That was really close. Again, we just didn't quite hit the mana we needed. We got hit by the early Force of Vigor was pretty good there, and then the Wasteland follow-up when we couldn't draw lands was awkward. We are running more mana sources than a traditional Mono-Red Stompy deck does at the moment. Okay, let's go to round 3. For the best Eternal experience this summer, check out Eternal Mania in Hasselt, Belgium from August 8th to 10th. Aside from hosting the European Legacy Masters, they have a whole host of other tournaments from team trios to old school and pre-modern. I will be there playing Legacy and hanging out as a special guest. This will also be the first event that I'll be giving out my own special Marit Lage tokens, so why not come down to enjoy an awesome weekend ran by one of the best TOs in Europe. I don't like this one. I think we need to have some sort of acceleration in our openers. Okay. Okay, we'll wait this one. I think it's the Chalice that goes back here. I just don't want to get Wastelanded out of the game. So we have an option on turn 1. We can either play the Linebreaker and just get in, or we can play the Fleshraker. The Fleshraker obviously gets better when the Linebreaker starts doing stuff. Thing is, if we are losing our Chrome Mox to like a Prismatic Ending or something, that shuts off red mana. We could just start getting the bits in. Right, Ancient Tomb, Chrome Mox. It's quite a long pause here. I think I'm going to go for the Fleshraker here. Like, the Eldrazi Linebreaker will be pumped a little bit next turn anyway. Because we get to make the extra token, we make up some of the damage we might miss this turn. Just a Ponder. That is not dealing with all of our... I say all of our aggression. We made a 2-2. But they shuffled their Ponder. That isn't the sign of someone who's particularly happy with what's going on over there. Okay, Dazes are a thing that exist. Let's go for a little friend here. Alright, this is 8 damage. Can this target any creature? Yes. So we're going to have a hasty Simian Spirit Guide next turn. Well, well, well. If it isn't Cavern of Souls on Ape. Pump our Simian Spirit Guide here. 10 damage, lethal. Well, that felt pretty darn good, but we don't really know what our opponent is doing. We saw Ponder, and that was about it, and then we just killed him too quickly. Do we just resend it? I think so. They could be like an Omnitail deck, in which case we would want the Disruptor Flutes. They could be High Tide, which you might want the Disruptor Flutes. We don't know what we're naming them until we're getting killed, pretty much. So I think we're just going to stay aggressive and just hope that our opponent needs a bit of time to win the game. We can just pound them with our massive creatures. What does this hand do? 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana. It's a turn 2 copy of the One Ring. I think that's good enough to keep. And maybe we draw something that changes things and we just play like a 1-drop and get a creature on turn 1 and start bashing our opponent. Preordain. Our opponent's definitely in combo town. The fact that they're running Prismatic Vista and not a fetch land that gets an island makes me think our opponent isn't playing High Tide, because you normally run the one that get island, so you have your 1 of Mystic Sanctuary. So this is probably splashing like green or something. Eldrazi Obligator. Okay, so I think this is Temple, Chrome Mox, Imprint Shatterskull Smashing, play Eldrazi Obligator. Just get in with some bits. If our opponent's Omnitail, there's an argument we can keep this and maybe steal an Emrakul, but I don't think that's a realistic proposition. And also, they get the Emrakul back. So I think I just want to pressure our opponent as best we can here. I will not pay for days if they try and daze us with it. I don't think it's worth our Simian Spirit Guide when this is going to give us the One Ring next turn. Alright, 3 damages. I'm going to be sad when later today this gets pinged down by Baymasters. Alright, this looks like a show and tell line. It is a show and tell line. I'll get my One Ring. They will get their Omniscience. Oh, and a Traxer. Okay, that's not so bad. Okay. No Omniscience, which is handy. Oh, they have Peak. I love a little Peak. What are they going to choose here? They're going to get the Emrakul, the Dress Down, one of the lands, and then probably like Cunning Wish and Ponder would be, I guess. And they might get the Show and Tell. Depends if they think this attracts can go all the way, which it might do. Emrakul, Show and Tell, Peak, Island, Dress Down. I would like to draw a bonus card, please. Alright, you can go clean up. Get rid of all your good cards, please. I got rid of the Peak. Sure. Okay. Devourer of Destiny can get rid of something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. That's not really enough to do an awful lot here. I think we're just going to do a little Kozilek's Command here. I don't think I'm been in the Spirit Guide because I'm going to want that to remove this Atraxa in a minute. I'm not expecting this to resolve. It could do, depending on how quickly our opponent can go off. They might just say, let's just not let them have anything else. Alright, so there is a land there. I'll put this on the bottom. We already have a land in hand though. I'm going to put them both on the bottom. A Chalice. What does that do? We can shut off Ponder and stuff, but that's not really relevant against our opponent's deck. Alright, I guess we're getting hit for 7. Makes the beatdown a little bit tricky, but I believe in the power of the One Ring. Now, if they Show and Tell in something that kills us, like an Omniscience, then sure. If they just Show and Tell in an Emrakul, then maybe we just get to take it with the Obligator. We have a 15, 16, 17, 18... 19, 20, 21. So we have exactly lethal with an Obligator if they just Show and Tell in an Emrakul. Should be a great way to win the game, but they did not go for it. Alright, One Ring. Do One Ring things. This is 2 mana. 2, 4. We have lots of mana actually, don't we? Because of the spawn tokens as well. 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Goodbye, Atraxa. This is a cast trigger, so they can't really deal much about that. It feels like our opponent's going to cast an end of turn Intuition, untap, and then Show and Tell Omniscience. Which means none of this really matters. But if they don't have that, then we might be okay. Otawara. They're going to bounce their Atraxa. Okay. We can't get enough mana to play this Linebreaker. We are 1 shy. Which is sad. We have a lot of damage coming in next turn. What are we going to go to clean up with? I think I'm going to get rid of the Chalice. Or one of these lands is probably fine. Let's get rid of Smashing. We have 16 damage with this Linebreaker right now. Alright, there's the Ponder. They just Show and Tell in an Emrakul. We do have a line that wins the game. We have to find one of our 3 remaining Obligators. But we have this card that draws us 1,000,000 cards. So, I believe. If they just Show and Tell in an Atraxa, then the Obligator still kills them. A Brainstorm. So very much looking for the Omniscience. I don't think they win without the Omniscience. What do we put in? We could reset our ring if we wanted to. I think that's a bit cowardly. So they might just be incentivized to Show and Tell. They could have the Dress Down up so they can just stop our creatures from having haste like the Linebreaker. That's pretty powerful. It buys them another turn to try and Omniscience us. Feels like that's what our opponent's up to. Alright, we're going to take some damages. Why wouldn't I draw some more cards? We have so many things to do here. Let's play this and we're going to name Goblin. Alright, let's cast this. What mana are we using to cast this? 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, do you want to fight over this One Ring? Force of Will, pitching Show and Tell. Okay, so this is definitely going to be a Dress Down turn for our opponent. That is a bit of a problem, but not the biggest problem, because this runs out at end step. So Goblin... The Devourer gives us lethal, so they have to Dress Down now. But then we can throw our One Ring so we don't die to it. And here comes a Dress Down. Oh, this loses the haste actually, doesn't it? That is the problem, isn't it? Yeah, so we only hit our opponent for 9 here. We don't have a way of getting out from underneath our own One Ring. Is there anything we can draw that allows us to kill our opponent? What do we have that we can draw? Kozilek's Command doesn't kill our opponent because we have no Fleshraker. Yeah, I forgot about the haste dropping off there. That's awkward. So maybe we're not supposed to have tapped our One Ring there. At least we know what we're up against now, which makes our life a little bit easier. A Ponder. So they're just going to rely on our One Ring killing us, I would imagine. But the fact that we haven't conceded means our opponent might be forced to try and do something else. But they're not going to want to cast a Show and Tell, because the Show and Tell could let us put in another One Ring. We'll see a few more cards, see how deep into the green our opponent is. Alright, we will draw some cards off the One Ring in response to let our opponent consider that we might have a way of beating them here. This does not deal damage. Yeah, I think that game was eminently winnable, to be honest. Okay, so I would like some Disruptor Flutes for what our opponent is up to. What doesn't look great? I'm not in love with the Chalices here. Like, it can show off Ponders and Brainstorms, but they have a bunch of like impulses and stock-ups and things, so it's just not the most effective. Okay. Yeah, we got a bit greedy with the One Ring there. Maybe we're supposed to cast our first One Ring before we tap. Sorry, cast our second one before we tap. Alright. Okay, what does this hand do? This is an uncounterable guy. It's aggressive. Aggression is good. Like, double Fleshraker gets out of hand incredibly quickly. And if they just show and tell in a big monster, we can be in a position to obligate to them. And that is definitely not where you want to be if you're our opponent. Yeah, just some sort of preordain action where they're going to stick these ones top or bottom. 2 on the bottom. I will name Eldrazi for this. Yeah, double Fleshraker is going to get pretty wild here. We show and tell in. Okay, what is the play? If they're just going to combo us, we're going to die. And that's all well and good. If we play the Fleshraker, then if we draw a 0-drop, we might be able to obligate to our opponent out the game. If they're just putting in like an Eldrazi, like an Emrakul or something. Alternatively, we play the Bombardiers here, so that if we draw a soul land, we can steal their guy and throw it with the Bombardiers. Those are some of the options. I think it's the Fleshraker or the Bombardiers. So if we play the Fleshraker, we'd have to draw a 0-drop. I think it's the Bombardiers. They have an Omniscience, we're almost certainly dead. Tractor, what are you going to reveal? Is there an Emrakul up there? No Emrakul. So they're going to have to draw a bunch more cards. It's possible they miss. It doesn't take that long to click through, so we're just going to let our opponent do it. But if we can draw a soul land and our opponent has to pass here, then we get to kill them. So we can attack them for 4, 5, 6, 7, plus another 7, 14. Throw this for another 9. That's pretty good. Now, is that going to be a thing that gets to happen here? Cunning Wish. So this gets them Shared Summons or Firemind's Foresight or whatever. We don't have to let our opponent click through that. Yeah, I think we kind of messed up the second game there and we could have won this one. Yeah, a bit awkward. We are 0-3, but all of our games have been close and felt like ones we could have won. It does feel like our deck is pretty solid. Let's go to round 4. Turn 2 Linebreaker. Turn 2 Linebreaker, turn 3 Linebreaker. That's a lot of damage. It's not very interactive, but we're going to give it a whirl. If we draw a piece of fast mana that we can go quicker, I'll keep this. A little Simian Spirit Guide to get us our turn 1 Linebreaker, turn 2 Linebreaker maybe? Undercity Sewers. Okay. Is this a fair or an unfair blue-black deck? We will probably not know until it's too late. But that's half the fun, isn't it? Do I want to play around Wasteland here? I think so. I think we're just going to play our basic Mountain and Pass. So things like Sundering Eruption, where we've got lots of ground beaters, is actually quite a useful card. Being able to blow up a land and giving our creatures unblockable is pretty sweet. Basic Island and a Tamiyo. Okay, so we're probably towards the fair, although I think the blue-black Reanimate deck also runs Tamiyo, so still not sure. Alright, go Eldrazi Temple. Let's see if our Linebreaker resolves. We're just basically playing Reality Smasher every turn, if you look at it sideways, because this is basically a Reality Smasher. Although it costs 3 instead of 5. Brainstorm, this is going to flip Tamiyo. But if they don't counterspell this is going to kill the Tamiyo. Days. Boo! We don't have the fast mana to pay for that. Okay. Next turn, we are deploying an Eldrazi Linebreaker again. A Wasteland. Goodbye, Eldrazi Temple. We have the Ancient Tomb. Let's try that again. Once more with feeling. Alright, Linebreaker. This is only going to hit the Tamiyo for 3, so the Tamiyo does get to go upstairs one more time. And we don't have access to the Reality Smasher unless we draw a Soul Land. What is this going to be? A Murktide Regent. Now this is one that we can't stop with our Sundering Eruption. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can make an uncountable Eldrazi. That doesn't matter here. How many spawn tokens can we make? Right, let's try and get some spawns going. I think our opponent is the straight blue-black build. I don't think another Kozilek's command is going to help us here. Ancient Tomb might do though. So I can make this big enough to rumble here. If this attacks the Tamiyo, it gets if this attacks, it gets shrunk by 1. So attacking here is bad, because then we're just attacking a 5/3 into their 6/6. Okay, goodbye Ancient Tomb. But we have these guys that allow us to make a Reality Smasher next turn. I think our opponent is probably just keeping the Murktide Regent at bay here. Oh no, they're coming in with it. That's kind of scary. This means they have an additional follow-up. Could be removal. Could be counter magic. Chrome Mox, please. Let's put away a Shatterskull Smashing, I think. I'm just going to pump the Smasher because if they want to kill this, it's going to cost them. If we attack our opponent here, we get 8, 9, 10 damage, so we have lethal next turn. Orcish Bowmasters, sure. So they can put everything underneath the Eldrazi Linebreaker and take that out. But they're still taking 8. And we have some draws that can kill them. Like another Linebreaker is going to get pretty close to that, isn't it? We do have our one of Devourer. We can use that to blow up the Murktide Regent. There's nothing good to get back with the Tamiyo just yet. Got a bit of Surveil action heading our way here. An Archon of Cruelty. So they are the Reanimator deck. Okay. And this hits us. This gives us a... Oh no, we take 3 and then the Murktide Regent kills us, doesn't it? I was going to say we could obligate to that. Okay, so our opponent is playing the Reanimator deck. This deck, every week, has been doing better and better. And I still think it might be the best blue-black deck. So, I guess we need some Leyline of the Voids. Do I want any of these other things? Blood Moon is okay. I'm just like, where are we fitting that in? I'm a little bit reluctant about having Smashers because our opponent has Dazes, and they also have the ability to like wasteland us off of this amount of mana. And if they discard it and put it into our graveyard, that's going to suck. I think I'll trim a One Ring as well. Okay, we can keep this. We're going to need to draw some more mana. I'm a little bit worried about the mana we have. I think we also want to play out the Fleshraker on 1. But we're not going to get blown out by the graveyard. And if we have the Fleshraker, anything we find can just give us some more mana. Or we could just try and clock our opponent with his Linebreaker straight away. I think I'm going to play the slightly cautious approach of Fleshraker. If you want to 2-for-1 yourself to Force of Will this, it kind of sucks, but that's a lot of their hand. So they're basically starting the game on 3 cards, and we're starting the game on 5. Alright, a red source, please. Our deck's got a lot of mana sources, and we didn't find one! Excellent. I don't know why we're having such trouble with mana when we have more mana than a regular Mono-Red Stompy deck. How are these Mono-Red Stompy decks doing it? Alright. I'll pay 3 life. I think I'm going to play the Fleshraker out again. Next time we play the Linebreaker and makes us a guy, and then our Linebreaker gets to crash for a bunch. Are we going to see something like a Barragoyf here? It is. It's only a 1/2 though. It does have Death Touch. Alright, let's get a Linebreaker down. So I could attack, or I could just let this go for a turn. This will still get them a creature back underneath a Leyline. A Petty Theft on our Leyline. Sure. We're just going to get reanimated on. A Broadside Bombardiers. I guess we're going to pump this. Give our opponent something to think about. And that is a big swing of damage right there. And we cleared their guy. Our opponent is looking pretty darn dead on board. Now, if they can reanimate a big monster, that might beat us still. We get to make 1 token and ping for 1. That also pumps the amount that we get to do with this. They're reanimating a Barragoyf. That doesn't matter. Eldrazi Linebreaker. Okay. What if I was to Linebreaker here? How do you feel about this one, opponent? Because you're going to get attacked by a lot of angry men here. Alright, let's keep it up. So we attack in. Even if we let them get the damage through, they're still dead. What we do is we sack wherever they block and ping them for a bunch. Alright, I like how I've sideboarded here. I think it's fine. I'm a little bit worried about Barragoyfs, but the Sundering Eruption is useful for that. We might be able to Shatterskull Smashing it, and we do sometimes have the Obligator lines too. But Barragoyfs, generally speaking, kind of the bane of red decks at the moment. And the bane of a lot of stuff, really. It just allows combo decks to transform into a really good beatdown deck because of how useful Barragoyf is in that role. Hand is slow, but shuts down the graveyard plan. Is that good enough? I don't think it is. Doesn't shut down the graveyard plan, but comes out swinging. So we keep this, and I think it's the Eruption that goes. I don't ponder that. At least means we're not facing down an Atraxa on turn 2. A Simian Spirit Guide. Right, let's just try and get some aggro down straight up. A Daze here is really sad for us. But I think our opponent's deck has so many scary lines involving the graveyard that if we sit back and give them time, that's not going to work out for us. Wasteland, okay, we're all going back to Stone Age, but I kept a hand that's pretty good at playing around that. A Chrome Mox. Right, I'm going to play out this Ancient Tomb. They can Wasteland this, but I'd rather they Wasteland this in the Cavern, I think. Maybe that's wrong because this gives colours, but this also gives colours. All right, another Wasteland. I'm going to continue this little trend. An Eldrazi Linebreaker. I'll play a Mountain and Pass so we can put the Bombardiers under the Mox and get the Linebreaker in. I think that is better because I'd rather have this on Eldrazi, just generally speaking. Leyline of the Void. Okay, so play this on Eldrazi. Play a Chrome Mox, and then we can put this useless Leyline under it. We don't get to have an uncounterable guy this turn is the problem. Because this needs to be red mana. Sorry, this needs to be colourless mana, doesn't it? Colourless. So it's a counterable Eldrazi Linebreaker. But it didn't get countered, so excellent. We need to reduce our opponent's life total to make actual factual reanimate less of an option for our opponent to use. An Entomb. Okay, we're pretty much just stone cold dead this. Since this deck got Troll of Khazad-dûm, I think I'm now 1-9 against the deck if we lose this round. And we're not beating that. Just, yeah, I think this deck is still possibly the best deck in the format. Alright, we are 0-4, but all of our rounds have been 1-2. They've all been really close. They've all been like, could have gone slightly differently. I think there's 1 or 2 where we could have played things differently and it would have been better. So this is the best feeling 0-4 I've ever gone, I think. I think the deck is really solid. Let's go to the final round and see how we fare. Okay, we have a turn 2 uncounterable Fleshraker into turn 3 Fleshraker into Kozilek's command, which usually wins games. So we have to make a decision about what land is more important for us to offer up to a Wasteland. And I believe the Cavern of Souls is the one we offer up because this is worth 2 mana and our deck without ramp when we're trying to play a bunch of 3-drops just doesn't function. Hopefully we don't see a threat here. Tamio, not really a threat. Play this, we name Eldrazi. It's a Brainstorm. They're going to flip their Tamio here. So there is a clock on this game, but the damage that we can put out is pretty gross. So I don't think we have to worry too much about this one. The more worrying thing is if they have some really useful spells they get to rebuy. But the old having a Planeswalker cranking up on turn 2 is not a great situation for us. The Wasteland, now that is the bigger problem here. Okay, I'll be honest, I'm not really a fan of Tamio and the play patterns around the card. And we're certainly going to come somewhat unstuck, I would imagine. Alright, Ancient Tomb. Chrome Mox. We only have 1 card in our hand that pitches Chrome Mox. Let's make a Glaring Fleshraker. Have they got a Daze as well? Sure. Not really sure what we're supposed to do about our opponent having A turn 2 Planeswalker ticking up, Wasteland and Daze, all in that turn cycle. It's just a bit too much. Now maybe if we'd have been able to try and put a threat down on turn 1, we could do something here. That does require some relatively specific things to happen. A Ponder. Alright, they're getting back the Daze when we're restricted on mana. But this means that Tamiyo isn't building up to an ultimate, which is good news. Okay, Glaring Fleshraker, I think it's your time to shine here. Getting a Force of Will, was that Daze just like... Alright, they're dazing so that we tap our Ancient Tomb. That's honestly fine by me. I don't believe our life total is going to be the most important thing in this matchup. Now, I could be wrong, they could just dump a big Murktide, but they're going back a turn away from casting Murktide by bouncing their land. Feels like we're really in this game, which I don't think we should be, based on our opponent's start here. Thoughtseize, would you like to get rid of our Linebreaker, most likely? So with the Fleshraker out, the Kozilek's command is going to more or less pay for itself. One of the commands, interesting. Reality Smasher. I think we're going to go for making spawns. I'd quite like to find another land here. So our opponent, if they want to counter, should have countered before this spawn came down, unless they've got a hard counter. Shatterskull Smashing is fine, but not necessary. It does give us an additional point of damage right now. 83 life on this. Go to one little colourless dork and play some more things. We get another Fleshraker trigger here. Ping them again. Go to attacks. So this guy gets, what, +5? So we hit our opponent for 7, 8, 9, or we can just kill this Tamiyo. I'm not expecting a Snuff Out here. Snuff Out is not very good in Legacy right now because the scariest creatures that people are playing are things like Baron Goyf. Okay. I don't know how we're still in this game after our opponent's start. Like, they had a pretty clean line to just take over the game with the Tamiyo, but then they kind of wasted it getting back a Daze that then they used into our open mana. I don't know. I'm not sure the lines our opponent's taking. We obviously don't know their hand, so maybe there's some other information that makes this make a little bit more sense. But it felt like this was our opponent's game to lose after the second turn. Alright, and we just win it. Excellent. Just blue-black stuff, really. I think our deck is probably fine as is. They haven't shown us any like full-on graveyard stuff. Obviously, Tamiyo cares about the graveyard, but they're not reanimating stuff that we've seen. I think we just resubmit. Like, we could board in the Blood Moons, but again, I don't think it's worth doing. Could board in Disruptor Flute for Wasteland. But again, we should just have enough lands. Turn 1 Fleshraker. Turn 2 Prophet, I guess. We'll keep this. A Tamiyo. Sure. So this is a matchup where if we did have the Red Blast that we took out at the start, it would be quite useful. Am I just jamming this into a Daze, or are we going to be a little bit more patient than that? It worked quite well last time at the end of the day. I don't think we should have played this. I think we should have played the Ancient Tomb here. Unless we just play out the Bombardiers right now instead. We can't play out the Bombardiers actually, can we? What are we talking about? Yeah, we should have played out the Ancient Tomb, because that way, if they waste on this, it's going to be harder for us to play the Bombardiers. You got Daze over there? A Force of Will. I'll take that. It is a 2 for 2 because we did have to use the Spirit Guide. But if we trade resources and then play the One Ring, we win the game. That's why the Mono-Red Stompy shell is so strong right now, because it's just like, can you answer these Haymakers? And when they eventually can't, the One Ring slips through. And then it just wins you the game because this is the best card of Arch Engine. And it's going to be their second draw for turn. If they can play a land and another cantrip, then they can flip the Tamiyo, and then we're back to dealing with a turn 2 Planeswalker. Playing this Eldrazi Temple out instead of the Ancient Tomb is definitely costing us. Or not, I guess, is also fine. Do I want to just jam this One Ring? If they had a Daze, they would have used it last turn. I think we're just going to jam this One Ring. If this resolves, then the chance of us winning the game is about 70%, I would imagine. Okay, and Eldrazi Linebreaker. That's some more damage that we can sling at our opponent next turn. If our opponent is secretly a reanimated deck and puts like a big monster into play, then we'll lose. But if they're just a fair deck, then I think we are liable to win from this spot. This is a good example of why I think the blue-black reanimated deck is the best blue-black deck. Because it just has this extra gear it can turn where it's like, okay, I'm behind in all these metrics, but oh look, here's like an Archon of Cruelty, and then all of a sudden the game flips on a dime. Kaito can do that a little bit in the fair decks, but it's not as good as just like reanimating a giant monster, as well as that being a thing that you can do on turn 2. Alright, Tamiyo, ticking up. No Orcish Bowmaster to worry about just yet. Let's try not to kill ourselves with one ring. That is the thing that I find myself doing more often than I would necessarily like. Okay. We get to cast a thing here. I think we'll just go for this Linebreaker, preserve our life total. They can daze and force us to Ancient Tomb here. So they can get a Fatal Push and kill our guy with it. I think we will bring Tamiyo down because we'd rather not have to play against them getting extra cards back. Alright, they didn't have anything to go and do off of this, but it was probably just going to be a Surveil land. Oh no, they got something instead. It's going to be a Brainstorm. An Entomb. Okay, so they do have the plan and now we lose. Well, sure. So I think the Blue-Black Reanimator deck might actually be better than it was in some ways because you don't know it's Blue-Black Reanimator until it's far too late now. Yikes. Yep, Archon of Cruelty. Goodbye. Our things. Probably the Kozilek's command isn't really doing anything for us right now. So we're trying to Eldrazi Obligator and Broadside Bombardiers. Now, we kind of have to in one turn, so we're going to need some fast mana off this One Ring. At least we now know that our opponent's doing Reanimator stuff. That's a bit of fast mana. Can we find the Obligator? We did find the Obligator and some more fast mana. Okay. So, this is 2, 3. We cast this. I would very much like to steal your Archon of Cruelty, please. Okay, then we cast this. If this resolves, then it's lights out for our opponent. A little daze. How annoying. Okay, so I guess we attack our opponent with everything. This will force them to sack Tamiyo anyway. We'll gain 3 life. And then our creature will die. Well, sorry, then we'll just die to their creature. Oh, we needed that spell to resolve. Why was it the daze? Try and work out what we can draw here that helps. I don't think there is anything. So I'm not going to do it. And this is... Oh wait, how much damage is this? This is enough to kill us with a One Ring, isn't it? And we don't really have a way of getting through that. Okay, our opponent is secretly a Blue-Black Reanimator deck. Yikes. I believe they banned the wrong card. Said it before and I'll say it again. Alright, we'll get rid of this. I think we still want the Devourer. We'll trim one ring here. Hand is very slow. We can do better. Turn 1 Linebreaker. Turn 2 Bombardiers. Or we can go turn 1 Chalice. Is pretty good too. Alright, I'm going to ditch the One Ring for now. I'm going to go turn 1 Chalice. That shuts off Entomb as an option for our opponent. And that's the main way they're putting stuff in the graveyard. I do not want to get wastelanded. Got Force over there. They do. They have Kaito in their deck as well. Maybe that's part of their pivot back to like more of a tempo style deck. I just don't know. The deck is just too flexible. That is a Tamiyo. A Leyline in the Void. What a great one that is. Okay, I'll pay some life here. Pay some more life. We can play around a daze if they've got one. Alright, we just get to attack with a big monster here. Okay, so next turn we can attack with Bombardiers. So we get in for 6 damage. We can also throw something if we want to. I don't think we are throwing our Linebreaker, but the turn after we have lethal. Alright. We've got a turn 2 Planeswalker again. They didn't plus their Planeswalker there, which is a bit of an error. I will take that. We need the help we can get. Come on, do a daze. Nope, it's a force. Okay. Our opponent hasn't really got anything going on, so I will just try and kill this Tamiyo. They didn't plus it, which means that we actually get to kill the Tamiyo here, instead of having this thing just hanging around. I think if they plus it there, we probably just have to attack their face. Wasteland. Goodbye, Ancient Tomb. A Barrow Goyf. Okay. That is a relatively large creature. Our opponent's got no cards in hand. Chalice of the Void. Like, this is worse on blocks for us than it is on attacks, so we are just sending it in here. And try and shut off a bunch of their draws using this Chalice of the Void. We can certainly go over the top with of their Barrow Goyf with, like, Obligator and stuff. It is annoying that they're going to get a turn to connect with us. Next turn we can play a chump blocking Spirit Guide, but I think we just want to shut off their draws with the Chalice. They're getting back another Barragoyf. Okay. Oh, this Barragoyf. I guess we're playing a Simian Spirit Guide. And we're not attacking here. So we have to like double block a Barragoyf, I guess. But then we don't get to cast spells anymore. Ugh. I don't know what we're supposed to do here. Well, we weren't going to tap that anyway, so that's a bit of a wasted wasteland in my opinion. I think you go after the red source. So I guess the plan here is to take one of them out. Death Touch means they get to clear it. And what are they going to find? I just don't know how we're supposed to beat this. We're going to get an Orcish Bowmasters. That pings us for 1 and we die. Okay, understood. That is an 0-5 league, but every single round was really close. I think what an 0-5 league is very, very unrepresentative of how the deck felt. I think this deck actually felt alright. Now I think we made a mistake against the Omnitail deck. Sorry, not the Omnitail deck, the Belcher deck, where you could have just held the Disruptor Flute in play to play around their Leyline. I think that was actually the correct play and we just missed it. So we could have won that round. The Blueback Reanimator, we didn't know they were Blueback Reanimator, so they got a freebie on us. That deck is bananas. There was like the green-white deck where we were just sending it and we got stuck on lands. But let's talk about the deck and see if there's ways that we can maybe mitigate some of these minor edges that we lost to. So the mana base here is kind of the thing that is a bit awkward. So Chrome Mox doesn't allow us to pitch a bunch of spells. So there was several times this league where we had a Chrome Mox and there was only one thing we could pitch to it in our hand. That sometimes means that you can't get the Simian Spirit Guide mana going because you have to pitch this to the Chrome Mox, which is, is better than just firing off a Spirit Guide most of the time. But sometimes maybe you want the mana from the Mox and the Simian Spirit Guide, and then it becomes a bit awkward. What we could do with this deck is take a leaf out of the mono-white Stompy deck where it runs the Mox Diamonds. So Mox Diamonds would give us way more stuff to pitch to it. We'd be getting rid of Sundering Eruptions and Shatterskull Smashings for actual lands. And then we can turn these into Mox Diamonds. Maybe we still need more land on top of that. It just becomes a little bit awkward working out exactly how we're doing it. But maybe that's a line that we could take. Maybe we can trim on something like Kozilek's Command to try and give us more options with our mana. We got flooded like once, maybe twice in the whole league. So it does feel like maybe we need more mana sources. But again, this is the same amount of mana sources as a Mono-Red Stompy deck, plus a little bit more. Now, there is obviously stepping on our own toes a little bit, because obviously Cavern isn't a red source for casting Bombardiers and stuff, whereas the Mono-Red Stompy deck, all its mana sources, like colored mana sources, do help it cast your spells, and we are kind of splitting the difference here. But I think, Broadside Bombardiers is strong enough to warrant trying to have the mana to cast this. So I'm not entirely sure of the best way of approaching this to refine it. But I do think there is something here. I think this feels much better than the other Eldrazi decks I've played so far since Zone Micro's one's been banned. And I think leaning into like the mono-red Stompy type thing is a good idea. But maybe we're supposed to be going even harder into the Stompy thing and, running tombs, temples, and some cities. And then you just got way more hits. Because this deck really wants to make 3 drops on turn 1 or 2. And if you have more soul lands, that becomes more reasonable. So maybe we could squeeze in a couple of City of Traitors in on top of this. So we've just got extra sources to hit our spells. And then go down the Mox Diamond route because it's going to be easier to pitch stuff. And if we go up to slightly more land, and we're pitching lands to our Mox Diamonds, then we're not like losing out our spells to go under the Chrome Mox. So like there were times where I was like, okay, well, we're going to have to put Broadside Bombardiers underneath this Chrome Mox if we want to do anything. Whereas we won't have that. It'll just be, okay, we got lands, it goes underneath here, we get to go. And maybe that's just a stronger way of doing it. Obviously a little bit less budget friendly, but we're trying to make the deck as good as possible. And I think that might be a line I would like to try with a deck like this. The Reality Smasher was actively cool and I liked it. I think this was... I did have Thought Not Seer. So the build that Glen submitted originally had some Smashers in. And I took them out for Thought Not Seer, tried a few games with it and decided I was wrong and Glen was right. And we put the Reality Smashers back in. And I do feel that they go with what the deck is trying to do a lot better. The Obligators were pretty sweet and we managed to get some cool wins precisely because we had the Obligator. And we had lines where, if our opponent didn't have that daze on that last turn to stop our Obligator plan, then we just win that game. So the margins we lost by were really tight here, but I think we could improve the deck a little bit, and it probably does begin with trying to fix the mana base. So we could go up to like 4 Caverns, add in a couple of City of Traitors, turn these into Mox Diamonds, and then these can just become mountains. There's definitely some options with this deck, and I'm looking forward to tinkering around with it and seeing what Glen comes up with, because I think there is something here for sure. Uncertain about the Blood Moons, and I will say that I did miss not being able to remove stuff. So maybe we need to, if we're going higher on mana, we can lean more into Devourer of Destiny, which means that we can actually have some removal of something big that slips in. That is another option. We could also run something along the lines of All is Dust, which is an Eldrazi spell, so we'll get discounted by the Eldrazi Temple here, and that may be another option that we can have just to wipe a bunch of stuff if we're in trouble. So there's definitely a lot of levers you can pull to tweak this one. Just try not to get smashed up by Blue-Black Reanimator, because that feels like it's going to be a tough time for the poor Eldrazi deck. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.